G'day, guys and girls of Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and everywhere else we're hosting now. Welcome to episode we don't actually know anymore. We're moving past that. We've got so far into the podcasting life, we don't even keep track of numbers anymore.
That's how you know you've made it, Ben.
That's the cutoff points where you know.
It was more so the intro, Mr. World.
The next one will be 50. The next one from there will be 100.
Yeah, that's
true. We'll keep track and we'll get to 50 and be like, we're at 50.
We're only going to talk about roadmaps from this point on, only checkpoints. How are we, boys?
Yeah, good. Chilling.
Good today. Got some carbs going in. So yesterday, high carb day. 450 carb going in. I had a little bit more whip in my step today.
He did. He's on a two-day refeed. Look at him go. Up and about.
Is that how you generally structure your refeeds, Chrissy? Like a 2-day window or just
always?
Always,
yeah. Especially at this point, I think that you're better off structuring high days like back to back as opposed to just once off. It doesn't drop enough diet fatigue. It doesn't drop enough off. And I think that, the longer that you're dieting, probably the more consistently, you need to be refed, especially as more and more, as, closer you get to like stage conditioning and, being that level of leanness. But to be honest, like I almost look forward to them, but at the same time I don't, because like coming out of them is a bit of a bitch because obviously after the high day, ghrelin, you get those hunger signaling, that hunger response where you're just like, fuck, like this is hard.
What if you just did 1 day of more food, like than what you're currently on?
I don't feel like it's enough to drop diet fatigue. And it's actually, I think it was Eric Helms was doing a bit of research into this, or even proposed an avenue of study. And he was basically saying that, as a good framework of progression through like refeeding throughout a prep, like you probably don't want to have refeeds in isolation, maybe at the beginning of a prep, but the further and further you get into if anyone's actually ever done like a lengthy contest prep, you'll know 1 day is not enough. Like you feel
didn't Jackson
terrible.
Pios do a refeed study, I swear?
Yeah, it could have been. But mainly his is also, his study was more so around refeeds from a physiological perspective don't do much, but that's in cohorts of individuals that don't actually prep for bodybuilding shows. I can tell you firsthand. I can tell you without refeeds, like it doesn't allow you to kind of diet as hard and as aggressively for shorter periods of time. So I definitely think the refeed definitely plays a significant role, whether it's physiological or not, psychological, whatever it's going to be. It definitely worthwhile.
There were. I can almost swear there was studies either suggested or have been done on the fact that it was, even if it is psychological, the benefits of that psychological rejuvenation produce better results in training anyway.
Now, I can't tell you how much better I feel. Like if you're just dragging, let's just say you're dieting linearly across the course of, say 4 weeks, and then, you get to a point where you start implementing a refeed, two refeeds like back to back. It kind of is like that little checkpoint for you, So, and then the further and further you progress into a diet, the more frequently you'll probably take them. So eventually you'll probably end on a structure that, you may be like 2 high days and then 5 low days. And that'll put you on a structure there where it's kind of like, okay, I can just get through these 5 low days and then boom, I've got 2 high days to look forward to. So, but if you were just dieting linearly all the way through, you could probably do that. But like, I also think it plays a significant role in like, especially towards the back end, like dropping off stress. Because sometimes you can see that body weight on the scale, hold, refeed. People think it's magic, but then it's just a bunch of, fatigue, accumulation, water drop off. So I definitely think it works from that front as well.
We should take it back to like, how many episodes back when Chris was like, nah, I feel like I need to suffer. And now he's like, yes, I need the refeeds.
It's important to suffer, but not suffer to the point that it's going to be detrimental to the actual look.
No.
So I like to suffer, but not to the point that it's going to make me look worse, which is what a lot of the old school bro bodybuilders do, is they just want to work hard and they just want to suffer. But they also, anyone can do that for 12 weeks. It's not that difficult to suffer for 12 weeks straight. But what is hard is dieting linearly for 12 weeks and then dieting for another 10 weeks with, refeeds in there, slowing down the rate of loss, managing fatigue. But the end look is so much fresher. I can't tell you, like coming to this point in this prep now, 9 weeks out, probably, I probably actually never felt fresher at this point of a contest prep.
Yeah.
So I think it's attributed to obviously marrying, refeeding with intelligent refeeding with a good structured diet, with training, like marrying training together as well, deloading. I've prepped before where I haven't done any of that. And you're just kind of limping onto the finish line, and you just end up looking like a fucking rinsed out marathon runner.
You get that one line fever where it's like
rinsed out marathon runner.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, at least you're getting there. Training's feeling good. You had a good training week last week.
Honestly, training is always good. Don't reckon I've had a bad week of training. Like, we obviously rate our sessions objectively at the end of every session. So we'll put a little marker down, whether it's like 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Looking back through my logbook, the lowest number I've recorded is like a 7 out of 10. And like, that's pretty fucking good. Like, this entire prep, I've not had a shit session. Even that session yesterday where you're not feeling great, Scaff, and I was also not feeling fantastic either. Because obviously I was transitioning out of the low days into the high days because my carbs are really low, and then we obviously started to go really high. So that swing like makes you feel pretty shitty if you've ever done it before. But it's definitely worthwhile doing it. But I obviously felt like shit, and the session was still good. We still got it done regardless, but it just wasn't. We didn't feel fantastic. Yeah. That's why I think it's important to have objective markers like tracking your lifts, so that way you know, even on days that you're not feeling it. Fuck, I still did 55 kilos on this machine pin-loaded lateral raise last week. Okay, I'm going to try and get somewhere in the ballpark of that again this week. Even if you're not necessarily progressing every single week, because sometimes in a contest prep, you just get to a position where it just isn't possible. But to be honest, for the most part across the board on all of the lifts outside of like, movements that I struggle to, it's more of like a joint thing. Like, for example, on the hack squat, I've done like 230 on the Cybex for like 6 to 8 before, but now we've probably dropped that back to more so like a higher rep range, training with some more reps in reserve, just to allow me to kind of better manage my fatigue throughout this, training block. Because again, quads are not necessarily a weak body part for me either. So why would I train them with the same intensity that I would need to like some of my pushing muscles, which are weaker? And also too, like the joint structures around there for me, like my knees get very brittle coming into the back end of the contest prep. So why would I, especially when I have to fucking have a classic routine where I'm going to be down on one knee, why would I want to be doing that with knee pain when it's not going to benefit me in any way, shape or form?
Well, then we're looking at protein. We're not looking at accrual, right? We're looking at basically just preserving what we have. I mean, we know that we do have those anecdotally that can grow into shows like we were talking about yesterday.
Myself.
But your goal, the objective isn't to grow. It's just a byproduct of of what it is that you're doing. Your goal is to just maintain what you have. So it's like you don't need to push, because we know that maintaining tissue is a lot easier than building tissue.
Yeah. Don't by any means don't take that as like, oh, you can train like a bitch, because that's not. Fuck
no.
Like, we have objective markers of performance to measure that against, to make sure that's not occurring. So even if you're training with a 1 RIR or a 2 reps in reserve or whatever it may be, like objectively, you still have data to look back on from week 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can kind of check yourself to be like, oh, okay, yeah, like look, on the hack squat, this week was like 160. Next week we're pushing to like 165 or 170. Next week 180. But the RIR has kind of remained consistent across the board, which I think is super important there, because it's easy to go, oh, I feel fatigued today, I'm not going to go that hard. And then, kind of bullshit yourself into being like, oh, that was kind of a 2 RIR, but it was like 120,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And your bloods as well. Should we talk about that? Or are we keeping that off camera?
No, I'm happy to chat about my bloods.
I think it'd just be an interesting one, I think, for most people.
Yeah. So
hear about prep. So
not a lot of people will get their blood work done in prep for a reason, because it's not in a really good spot. In the most part. So for myself with the bloods, I obviously got my panels done, and everything is pretty much in a really good spot except for a few markers. So my EGFR, or my estimated glomerular filtration rate, was a little bit lower than where it would normally sit, which, I mean, you can put that down to a number of factors. It could be hydration status at the time of testing. It could be, obviously the creatinine is one of the markers that they use to calculate the EGFR. So if you're using creatinine, and my creatinine is obviously going to be elevated, high levels of muscle protein breakdown in a contest prep scenario, really pushing the envelope with a lot of different things, it's going to be escalated, which is going to, artificially deflate my EGFR.
Yes.
So
for those listening, EGFR is just a kidney marker.
So it's basically a marker of like kidney health and the rate at which the kidneys can filtrate like waste products.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much what I decided to do was, like, I wasn't necessarily that happy with that number. So I was like, okay, well, it's probably nothing to worry about. And even still, I've spoken to my doctor about this at length, and obviously Dean as well. and Scaffy as well. We've had a few big discussions surrounding this. So I decided to pull a statin C test, which is basically like a protein in the blood, which is like probably a better marker of kidney function for people that are highly muscled and going through periods of like high muscle protein breakdown that, creatinine's not going to influence too much. So if that comes back normal, you can combine that with your EGFR, and it'll give you like probably a better estimate of your glomerular filtration rate. And that'll kind of tell me then, okay, my kidneys are functioning fantastically, which to be perfectly honest, that will likely be the case. It's just, I always like to come at it from the perspective of, I want to be overly cautious because, you just don't know, you don't know what could potentially be happening,
Yeah. So I think it was a big thing as well. And it's one of those things where you can always overthink it. Sometimes knowledge can be a curse, or education can be a curse, because you have two ends of the spectrum. You have one that will get their bloods and have no idea like what's going on there and just be all over.
Or you'll be the normal bro and you'll be like, you just won't get bloods done ever.
Or you have it. That's like a subcategory. That's another category. Yeah. But then we have those that have the background or understand a lot of this stuff, and then they get it, and then they also overthink it, because they also, I think a big thing that we look at is, or what maybe you didn't forget, but just I guess we didn't account for, was literally like, how also do you feel? So it's like, we do have numbers on a page that give us an idea of what's going on internally, which is obviously definitely needed. But sometimes you'll know, and your body will tell you that there is something going on. And usually when it comes to something like the kidneys, usually when you urinate, you have problems, you have pain. There's blood just coming out of places that shouldn't be coming out of. And it's like, if we're in that sort of scenario, it's kind of like, well, okay, we have something going on here. We've got,
what did we chat about? Blood in the body. Good.
Yeah. Exactly right. What was that offer? Blood in body. Good. Like literally, what it is. So, for those that I guess that are listening, when you do get blood done and that sort of stuff, because if you are training and do have a bit of muscle, a lot of these things will be skewed. It is a byproduct of muscle. It's just how it is. So making sure that we are sort of use your heads a little bit as well, use a bit of common sense and think, hey, if I'm not in any real pain as well or any discomfort.
And that's what we said, like subjectively, I'm feeling the best I've felt.
Exactly.
In any prep ever. And even just like, not even in a prep, like I still feel really, really good. So, there's
the other thing too is that we do
worry about that.
We do these things only short bursts of time. So when you get those bloods, when you get those health feelings in those situations, is to also remember that, and me and Dalton talked about this a few times, is that people panic really quickly and kind of like they'll get these one numbers and like, you're also doing a very strenuous, heavily taxing thing in the body when you go through a prep. You're not going to stay there forever. You don't stay in this acute situation for chronic periods of time. So you'll obviously, like, you'll have a smart coach, which is Chris, and Chris has a smart coach. You're going to go through the prep and then periodize your way out of it to get back to regular balance, health positions, like a better standpoint to then grow or whatever you do after that. But you don't sit there and go, right, I'm going to be in prep life for the next 12 to 24 months. It's a very short-term activity that's then going to get back to a normal lifestyle-ish for us, a normal regular balance anyway, and put the body back into a better position. So obviously, like, getting bloods and stuff is important, but I think a lot of people too don't realize that what we do here is really 3 to 4 months tops. And then there's usually like a good period of time where you're not going back to that situation for a long time.
Yeah, so it's amazing what an energy deficit will do to blood markers.
Yeah. I also like to come from the perspective of like right now is probably when my bloods will be at their all-time worst. Mm-hmm. And I want to know that. A lot of people wouldn't want to know that, but for me, I want to know where they are, like, comparatively to next time we run a contest prep, So I have that because I got bloods all the way back to like 2016. So I can go back through and I can look through everything that I've got from like 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then obviously have those numbers as markers to like compare against, because again, with these blood works and these ranges, the reference range that they give you is important, but what's more important is your relative reference range to where you've tested in the past. So that's a really, really important marker there, because you don't just want to take something in isolation and be like, shit, this is outside the reference range. It's like, okay, well, where is that relative to where you've been before?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's why we take bloods regularly over periods of time and then take them at certain aspects of.
Well, that's why we as coaches do that.
Yes, and that's why we encourage our clients to do that. And those that are listening, if we're not your coach, do that.
Even if we're not your coach, still get your blood done. Get your bloods done regularly. I'm probably
new service from Bros with Brains, blood reading.
Well, you can use our discount code for MediChecks.
This is it. We've worked it out. We're going to crack the NFT world. We're going to create an NFT, and the only way that you can have us read your bloods is buying one of those NFTs. Done. Sorted.
We should hit up iMedical and get a discount code.
I've got one with ice cream.
No, okay.
There you go. So, I mean, for private labs, obviously, a lot of the stuff you can get from your GP, but sometimes GPs do get a little bit funny when it comes to enhancement practices and wanting to get certain bloods that are outside honestly, the norm.
That's what pisses me off the most, right? That's what pisses me off the most is because a lot of GPs don't have their client's best interest at heart. Well, I mean, in a way that they do.
Yeah, it's a funny conversation. Only because one of my clients is a sports medicine doctor, and what the care of duty from there, they're told obviously to say, hey, don't do this. That's their duty of care. That makes sense. It's that's fine, and it's because they're aware that this isn't in their realm. So it's they're washing their hands of it because as soon as you get your bloods done by a GP, then they take responsibility. Once they put their name on the referral, they take responsibility for your results and then how to obviously help correct those results. So that's the worry. And that's why a lot of GPs and this is rubbing it in his beard moisturizer. For those listening, Chris has just got a bit of yogurt there in his beard, but that's fine.
That's why you need to come.
This is why we're going to do stupid shit live, on the actual video, so you can.
Yeah, we'll know who watches it.
But yeah, so it's that's why doctors don't like to do it. You will get lucky every now and then and have a doctor that's willing to learn and understand. But we do have those private medical clinics that, you can just sort of buy it online and drop into a clinic and hopefully, you have a coach, or you can just do consults with coaches.
And honestly, you are better doing that. If you're scared to go and see a GP, please don't be scared to get your bloods. There is ways around having to go to the GP. You can literally go to iMedical or iScreen that Scaffy's got a discount code for to help you out with there. Yeah. And then you'll literally print off a form and you can go to any pathology clinic.
Yeah, and they won't question it. They won't question it.
They won't question it. They take your bloods, no questions asked, done. You get an email a day or two later and it'll be your full blood panel, the good, the bad, whatever it may read,
And most of them are customizable packages as well, the ones you can get a sport-specific one, full sex hormones, blood hormones, vitamin deficiencies. There's usually packages that you can pick to depending on what your actual sport interest is. So, and there's no questions about it. You'll get all the information you need.
Yeah, but I mean, easiest way is just hit maybe one of us up and ask for suggestions on what bloods to get, because I'm pretty sure we're all fairly across being able to suggest what I would want or what we would want to see if you were to be a client of ours. And that's just how I tend to do it. I tend to do a lot of consults with people with their blood work. So that's always fun. But yes, point of the matter is don't overthink too much, especially if you know some stuff.
What was that thing the other day? Someone put up on their Instagram that wrongly shouldn't have put it up. If someone can't explain something to you, they don't understand it. Said by a person who can't understand.
It was it Feynman's theory or whatever it was. It's all right, bro, shut up. Stop using big words that you don't understand.
Spell Feynman.
Yeah, you didn't even know who that is, bro.
Who was off, are we?
Yeah, pretty much. So we do have a few Q&A questions. What Q&A questions? Question and answer questions. Anyway, that's how fried I am.
People say ATM machine.
Should we break into some of them?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right.
We should get that new Gamer Well as well. We ran out of cards yet, or we still got more cards?
No, I've got them here. What do we got? I mean, we haven't got many. I mean, these are sort of the back end shit cards. So we'll probably have one, maybe 2 more weeks of this, and then we'll move into a new card game. I
still don't know how to play it, dude.
No, I really need to read how to do it, because there's scoring cards and shit. And I'm like, okay, how can I make this work? How do I make this work into my benefit? That's how it's going to be.
How can I monetize this?
All right. So we've got a few good ones here, mostly actually educational questions, or there's no real funny ones just yet. I didn't see any would you rathers or fuck, marry, kills, or actually genuine questions.
The people actually care more about the fucking knowledge in this podcast than they actually care about the funny stuff.
Apparently people think we're smart.
Bullshit.
So I think,
guys, wrong show.
All right. We've done this before, but we'll do it again. Best 3 over-the-counter supplements for a training program.
tests, Deca.
depends where you're buying them from. What counter? You in Thailand? No.
I mean, look, you. No one's going to say well, you could say caffeine, but
I'd say caffeine.
I'd say
caffeine. But are we going to go down? Are we going to go down the routing of sports performance or like?
Well,
general health
just for a training program.
For a training program. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
Creatine monohydrate.
Yep.
Caffeine.
Yep.
Yep. And
protein from me.
Well, I don't view whey protein as like a supplement because it's protein, you know. So to me, it's like some people would, but okay, some sort of protein.
Yeah, that's literally from me, the easiest way, and they're fairly cheap.
Yeah, and then if I was going to do like a health supplement, probably a high strength fish oil, magnesium, and potentially vitamin D.
Yeah, vitamin D. If you're going to do like the health side of supplements, would be like vitamin D, definitely magnesium because nobody gets that in. The other one, I think I might differ. Might be. I like fish oil, obviously, but zinc being a big one as well. So
we actually also discussed this on the last podcast. If you want to know where you're deficient in your micronutrients, and if you actually need omega-3s or omega-6s or whatever you're missing, chronometer, track a day of eating.
Yes, exactly right. You got any other supplements to add to there, Ben, considering you're the one that worked in the supplement store?
That's really all I've ever sold.
What about ZMA, bro? What about ZMA?
And get wacky dreams before, like, those were the days.
When you used to get fucking Fenibut, like just
bro. Fenibut's the bomb.
Yeah.
And then who was it here that fucked it for us? It took too much, and
there's 3 guys. I think it was either the Gold Coast or somewhere, and then the PGA completely re-regulated it.
Yeah,
what are you using it for?
No, they use it properly, but then they comatize themselves with it. It's like a 3-day coma.
Right.
They overdosed it.
Typical TGA got a hold of it and was like, well, if stupid people are able to do more than the recommended dose, then no one should be able to use it. And so they took it away. Between
that and it does have an addictive substrate in it. But I mean, we won't talk about that because that's the best part.
That's pretty much what I did. A couple of my previous employment was I spent most of the time talking people off buying shit products.
Yeah.
Employee of the month.
yeah. Turns out you came into me to get knowledge, not just spend a bunch of random money.
It's like, why do you...
Here's a whey protein, here's a creatine, and put the rest of the stuff back.
But I need $40 for the stuff, right?
Go to 7-Eleven, buy No-Dose. It's cheaper than the caffeine tablets we sell, and you'll be right. Ideal training split for growth.
Oh shit! Oh fuck me! Where do we even begin with this?
What a day to get Chris up on his higher carb day! Like, yes.
God,
imagine if Chris didn't have carbs in him for this one. He'd have been like, "Oh, fuck off."
I can come at this from 2 different perspectives. Okay,
do it.
So
I love the hand clasp here.
Take a knee, children. Take a knee, children. Let's start with I suppose.
Bro split.
Advancement of training, right? Beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Okay?
Yes.
The more advanced you are on the spectrum, the more your volume requirements are going to be, probably more specific to weaknesses in your physique.
Mm-hmm.
Coming at this obviously from a purely body composition, hypertrophy-based perspective. If you're just a beginner and looking to start, bro, you can start on anything, whether it's a bro split, a push-pull legs, an upper-lower, a full body. To be honest, I would probably favor something with a higher frequency. And obviously because you're going to get, a pretty decent response even from such a small amount of training volume. So your training volume needs will escalate the further and further you go through your training career as a whole.
Yes.
I would say that looking at it from like the perspective, if you're looking at it from just splits as opposed to just volume, because at the end of the day, you can rearrange your volume in any way you like, but it's going to be dependent on what your individual preference is. And more often than not, people are going to fall on a spectrum of they like the bro split, which is like one body part per day. So chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, legs on Wednesday, whatever. However, in terms of like actual volume split across the week, it's probably not the best way of, you'll make progress on it initially, but it's probably not the best way of splitting things up.
Yeah, definitely slow down.
Yeah, because you'll be able to, we probably know from the research, at least anyway, that 2 times a week frequency is better than 1. We can't definitively say whether or not, 3 is better than 2 or 4 is better than 2 as of yet. But in saying that, if you can handle more total volume or tonnage across the course of 7 days, it's probably a good idea. The listeners are probably going to want something tangible to take away. Okay?
Yes.
So what I would say for most people that are probably listening to this podcast in terms of the scope, you're looking at intermediate to probably advanced trainees. You're probably likely going to be settling on some variation of upper lower. some variation of push-pull legs, or some variation of, I mean, you could go full body. I've just never liked doing full body, because the more and more that you train, like, you'll probably find you like, again, your adherence to the program. Again, I don't want to bang on about adherence, because we all know that's going to be the primary determinant of whether or not a program is going to work or not. But for me, like, I don't love doing full body. I don't like putting muscle groups all on the same day. I much prefer to do like an upper session or a push session, or or a pull session, something like that. So that's likely where people are going to fall on that spectrum. So even if you're in doubt, you could go something like an upper lower push pull legs, which is going to encompass 2 body parts per week, 2 times the frequency on most body parts across the course of the week. Start just getting an understanding of tracking your overall training volume in terms of working sets. So you at least need to know where your current ranges are. So, am I doing 6 sets a week for chest, 10 sets a week for back, 6 sets a week for quads, 10 sets a week for, I don't know, biceps, triceps, So at least if you know where your kind of landmarks are, then you can look to kind of go from there. Because if you don't know where your current landmarks are, you can't assess current recovery. And if we don't know where your current recovery is, you don't really know where you're applying, like, and where to continue to apply an adequate stimulus to constantly grow from there. I would say the more and more advanced you get into your training programming, the more and more it's going to look a little bit wacky, because, you may have go through periods where you're doing higher frequencies on certain body parts to prioritize them, higher volumes on certain body parts in terms of set volume accumulations across the course of a week in order to see them grow. So if you're running like specialization on chest or back, you may prioritize higher frequencies, higher volumes on those for short durations of time. Again, that's going to get into the minutiae of programming again. And if you're probably wanting something like that, this is not the scope of the question for you. You'd probably contact one of us and get us to write something for you like that. But for the most part, upper lower or push pull legs, if you're going to set up an upper lower, start with probably your weaker muscle group first. So, if it's your chest, start with the horizontal push, but you're probably wanting the first session horizontal push, horizontal pull, vertical push, vertical pull, maybe a lateral delt, a dip, bicep, tricep. And you could kind of rinse that out, and then you could kind of mix up the other session to be more of a, you could have one as a strength focus, one as a hypertrophy focus, mix up the rep ranges. Obviously we know that when it comes to rep ranges across the course of, a big spectrum of rep ranges, like probably 4 up to 30 repetitions, as long as they're taken within a relative proximity to failure, you will get the same relative hypertrophy across the board. You still want to train those lower rep ranges though. Keep your exercise selection in mind here, because those lower rep ranges are going to be more beneficial to, still growing probably more so in terms of strength and handling more mechanical tension. Think about it logically. If you're doing a barbell bench press, is it better suited to the 5 to 10 rep range or the 15 to 20 rep range? Probably the 5 to 10 rep range, right? So again, keep that specific to the exercise selection specific to the rep range. And then, either upper, lower, push-pull legs. You can do a bro split if it's set up well. Honestly, probably my favorite way of programming for myself, outside of all the bullshit I've just kind of spoken about just then, would be some variation of a bro split. So whether that's like, putting push-pull or chest and back together, putting like, mainly quads on their own day, hamstrings on their own day. Because again, even though it doesn't look like a 2 times a week frequency, if you're doing like a leg press, for example, on one day, and you're doing a hack squat on the other day, there's still going to be a touching on the hamstrings and glutes in those days as well. Much the same with like shoulders, for example. If you're doing, like lateral delts, it's very easy to chuck a set of lateral delts onto like a chest focused push session if you're lagging through the delts. So again, just in closing there, before I let the other guys kind of take over and put their thoughts onto this as well. Identify where
this is the end of the podcast.
I'll just say shit.
Just keep going. We're just going to sit back. Let me just go get my drink.
I've been speaking too long. Let me enjoy a piece of toast.
He was on a tangent. I fucking love it.
You need this guy food more often.
We're going to get him the good questions on the food days. That's it. So can you let us know when your next refeed is so that we can get the questions? And I'll post it in
probably 4 fucking weeks.
Yeah, I'll be like, guys, all right. It's like this week's episode recording is a refeed day for Chris, so make him juicy.
We're gonna advertise the shit out of that.
Now the question I have to you boys is, did I answer that question or not? Because I spoke about a lot of shit.
I mean, yeah, I mean, ideal training split for growth. I mean, that really nails it down. The only thing I'd add onto that is when we look at the ideal training split, and as Chris had mentioned, was push-pull legs, or if you wanted to try a bro split. Like personally, I don't like the bro split for most people, obviously person dependent and goal dependent, only because the effort required to grow in certain exercises decreases if you're placing the effort high in the first exercise. So it's like you're only going to get more fatigued as the session goes on. That's why we like to split the sessions in two, and that's why like 2 a week frequency seems to be better. And then obviously the argument, well, if you can do 2, can you do 3? And then it's like, well, if you did 3, did you apply enough effort into? Because if you did, you're probably going to be too gassed for 3, but that's a whole different argument. The other thing is when we look at volume landmarks and trying to work out where to start, the easiest way to look at it is we want to start at a minimum effective volume, and it would appear to be anywhere between 8 to 10 sets per body part. Now, how you want to split up your body parts is really up to you, but chest, back being 1 and 2, quads, hamstrings 3 and 4. You can do bicep, tricep 5 and 6. You can do shoulders 7, and then if you want to do calves 8. So from a hypertrophy standpoint, wanting to pick your body parts apart, 8 different exercises there, 10 sets across the week for those body parts. Start from there and then slowly progress up. I'd probably progress effort up first, and then if you want to titrate sets and all that sort of shit, and changing the frequency on exercises. So if you want to have 3 exercises for lateral delts versus 2, and all that sort of stuff based on what is lagging, is probably all I'd add into that. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. There's literally nothing else to add to it.
Ben's like, see.
I'm gonna go grab a coffee. My job's done. No, that's literally how I think, and it's something I've suffered with even recently. Me and Scaff talked about is people trying to overcomplicate training, periodization, programming, and stuff like that. It's just like working in a range that is effective for you, that you can track, that you can enjoy, that is targeted, including specificity, as we've talked about before in previous episodes, making sure exercise selection matches the specificity and that you're able to continually progress on it. Chances are you're going to grow. Obviously, there's variations in that and a lot more nuances to take into account. But especially if you're newer to that sort of training, you're trying to really find where your, effective ranges are and your effective programming is. Like, that's all you really need to worry about. Like, going anything more than that is just, I think, getting too much.
Yeah, I think too, just remember as well, because I touched on a couple of things with volume escalations and volume accumulations and going to maximum recoverable volumes. But again, you can also just train. If you think about the volume response curve, it's kind of like an inverted U. So you could basically train anywhere between here and here, which for most parts is probably going to be somewhere between 8 to 20 working sets per body part, depending on how hard you're taking those sets relatively close to failure. So even if you'll just pick, all right, I'm going to start with 15, fantastic. Pick that. Run that into the ground for 6 to 8 weeks. See how far you can continue to progress for until the niggles and progression starts to stall. And then once you've hit that maximum recoverable ceiling, deload, rinse, repeat. At least that way you've got an objective marker then of okay, I started here. Okay, now where can I progress to? Or even start at 10 and work up from there. Each muscle group I feel probably has a slightly different, volume landmarks in terms of their response to hypertrophy. Depending on things like muscle architecture and just the way that different things contribute, because if you're doing a chest exercise, there's always going to be a contribution from the delts and triceps. There's secondary contributions there as well. So you may not, if you're running high focus on chest for a block, you probably don't want to be overly emphasizing the triceps. So just little things like that with muscle group crossover, just kind of keep that in mind when you are programming.
Yeah, Lyle McDonald had a really nice way of measuring it, because obviously when it comes to a hypertrophy program and using the chest example, so we knew that using a pressing motion, like a compound pressing motion, I think more so than a cable pressing motion, though I guess it'd probably work if I think about it with a cable press, would be however many sets you do with the actual exercise, half those sets, add that to the total volume for the secondary mover. So it's if we're doing, 4 sets of chests and 4 sets of a press, let's just call it an incline hammer press, 2 sets would then also be contributed to tricep volume. And he goes, that was a way to potentially measure it. Now, it's not something that I do personally, when I'm measuring out my sets per body part type scenario. But it's, I think maybe the more advanced you get, it could be something worth looking at depending on when you're looking at growth factors and all that sort of stuff. But, it's just a little nuanced thing that you can throw in there if you need to. But moving on, considering we went into depth for that. Hold on, let me bring up other questions because they decided to disappear. Will one of bodybuilding gyms, like one gym, take off more as the sport grows? And will the franchise gym numbers start to decrease? If so?
I mean, I don't think bodybuilding is enough of a niche to take over massive markets like that. Like, you think of the Anytimes, you think of the Genesis, you think of the Snaps and Jets. They literally appeal to the greater population and the greater audiences that are just simply looking to exercise and move. I don't think they're going to wash away because you're getting bodybuilding gyms. I think it's just going to become, you're going to get more access to places where it's for like-minded people. So you may get those populations building into like the one location, like one gym, or like there's a Golds up here now at Keppering that just opened, which I'm keen to go try out. The bigger worlds that are starting to open, because there are some that are kind of just fitting out that sort of studio franchise vibe where it's just like some cool equipment and cool light shows and shit like that. But I think the bigger bodybuilding gyms, or those very specific, like those specifically designed gyms, aren't going to draw, start taking away from the other facilities. Really, they're just going to draw more bodybuilders, and we're not a massive market. We're a pretty small population.
I guess when you look at it too, right? When you look at a business, not so much a business, I guess a business in this industry that it creates a community. That's where I think like almost strongman and powerlifting got it right. Like these smaller gyms that are, I guess what we'd probably deem as almost studios, right? But like they're that sort of semi-commercial, a bit bigger than a studio, not fully commercial gyms that have this community because they all have the same goal in mind. And that goal is obviously just to get stronger at powerlifting, for example. So everyone comes in, they all know each other. They can all train together with the same goal and all that sort of stuff. Whereas when we look at a commercial gym, like there's no environment for that to occur. Like when we look at where we train at one gym, obviously where you've seen, like there's couches there that you can sit down on, there's a desk where you can sit down and write your program. So it creates, there's also the cafe like at the front. So it creates a community environment or a feel where, pre and post workout, you can sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and chill out. Whereas most commercial gyms don't have that.
Yeah. It kind of feels like get in, get out.
Well, I mean, but that's also their business model, right? It's just like pay for your membership, come in, you're here for the time that you need to be here, and then get out and go about your life, which is not necessarily a bad thing either.
A side note, guys, people actually use, in the gym communities, their marketing strategy is to get the people they know aren't going to come back because they lose money doing nothing.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's how memberships work at commercial gyms. But at the same time, so when the questions are put, proposed, hey, will these gyms take over? I mean, can these businesses create a community for the members to want to come and hang out there and bring their friends? That's the biggest thing, right? Like word of mouth is always going to be the best way to market. So it's like the first thing we said, myself and Chris said when you said you were coming down, Ben, is like, we're taking it to one gym. 100%. Because I mean, it's not just the equipment and the mad, setup that they have. It's like, it's that feel. And, you have Mike and T.
I'm telling people if I hear they're going to Melbourne.
Yeah, exactly right.
If you look at Mike and T, they know the name of every single member that's in there.
Exactly.
And they always make a point to say hello and goodbye. And that, like, in this type of setting is like, that's something that you just don't get.
And every member will say hello to you. Like when you're training, and it's like, there's no animosity. There's no, I'm better than you. There's no, any of that. It's just, hey man, like, can you help me on this set? No stress. Can I borrow that? No stress. You got many more sets? No stress. Like it's a good, vibe. It's a really nice environment to be in. And it's a nice community to be in. And I think that's where these gyms will take off if they can create that and emulate that. I haven't been to another commercial gym that can do that.
But even in the takeoff sense, like they're not, I don't think in sort of the way the question was proposed, I don't think they're going to affect the commercial aspect, because the commercial aspect doesn't, though they don't have that ability to create that community, they're simply literally just a place for people to get in and get out. It's just a close access. They don't, and especially when we have those taboo concepts around us training heavy and hard and like the bigger guys being dicks and all that, these general populations just simply want to go to a place that they can be left alone on their own and do their thing. We want a collective mind or like a collective community to engage in training, because we're all doing something similar, whether that's pushing ourselves to a higher degree intensity of training for whatever sport it is, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, strongman, whatever it may be. you're going to be surrounded by like-minded people, and the research is very clear on how that improves motivation and intensity. So that's kind of like a cool concept to I guess understanding their marketing. Like one gym will create that. They will. It's inevitable that they will. And gyms like that, but I don't think it's going to really affect numbers in the general population gym.
Yeah, it's just going to work alongside versus, replace.
Yeah. You probably just have less egotistical. You probably have less of the bigger dudes at those commercial gyms now because they're going to have a drivable distance to get to like a big, heavy facility.
Yeah, they have a better spot to go to, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anything to add on that one, Chris, or are you in agreement?
No, I'm in agreement. I think, like I said, they will sink if they don't have the same community vibe and community feel.
Because they won't have the number. They won't have the number access, right?
It needs to be more than a gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me bring up the other page with all other questions. How could Australia have more shows or pro shows in the future as COVID dies off?
Not possible.
It's not.
Cool. That answers that question. That was the fastest question we've had.
You've got to look at like population densities,
There's not enough people.
There's just not enough people. America has per state what we have in our entire country. They have per state in some places.
It's like,
New York alone has like 8 million people.
We can have a pro show provided every pro in the country does the show. Otherwise, it's just not going to be feasible financially for them to run it.
Devil's advocate to that. Would having, let's say, one more show, for example, would that entice Aussie pros to compete here more?
I don't think so. I don't think the population density warrants it.
No. Okay, fair enough.
As much as it sucks, I wish that they would, but I don't think it's financially viable. It just wouldn't be a smart business decision because again, all of these pro shows that they run over in the US and stuff, like they're very profitable because they've got a higher amount of amateurs and they've got a high amount of pros also doing the show.
Well, I guess what about like Australasia shows? So, having New Zealand, some of the Asian countries come here to compete.
Well, they have a New Zealand pro show.
Yeah, there's one in New Zealand, but I'm saying if we had more here, would that entice other countries close by to come here?
I don't think so because there's not enough really good pros outside of Australia. Yeah. It's like it's either here, the UK, or
the US.
The US. Otherwise, outside
Brazil,
of that, or Kuwait.
Kuwait. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure didn't the because there was about to be a Thailand pro and that got cancelled.
Cancelled, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking to a couple
Alex
of guys.
Connors was going to go do it. That was his only chance to do a pro show in Southeast Asia, and it got cancelled. So yeah, even with that risk, there's not enough.
Bro, Mike was doing that show as well in the amateurs.
Halusi. Oh, was he? Shit. Oh, he would have flogged that. That was a done deal. But yeah, like even with those around, there's still, it's not a big enough draw card, and especially with everything going on, even as COVID eases up, it's not a huge draw card to travel as far as we have to, and things that other people have to do to get to Australia to compete that makes it really warranted. I think the 2019 Arnold's that I did, that was the biggest deal in the world because there was so many pros who decided to make the trip and literally haven't heard from them since they'd come back.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, what else we got? Do steroids have any calories?
Yes.
Yeah. For people that shouldn't do steroids, yes.
How do we deter people to do steroids? Do you think they have calories?
Yeah. Are you in a calorie deficit? No steroids. Are you in a calorie surplus? Still no steroids.
Anyone asking that question, just no.
Yeah, if you're asking this question, don't do steroids.
Yeah, if this is remotely running through your head, immediately contact one of us to tell you not to, but also then let's just get coaching because you need it.
Bad habit breaking advice and staying disciplined in a deficit.
This is interesting. It's a tough one because actually this is more probably up Ben's alley. Let's let him just go.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to realize. This is the handball one.
Yeah, so habit breaking is an interesting one, but it's also not a hard one, but it's hard to consistently do. So ideally, depending on the habit, we are trying to reconstruct new habits to break the old ones down or remove the old ones. You also have to identify what those old ones are. So for a lot of people, habit formation generally leads to where they've gotten to. So you think about how big certain people get when they get clinical obesity. It's not out of a desire to continually consume food. Usually it's out of a developed habitual behavior that routinely gets them engaging like food consumption. So the idea is to interrupt the feedback loop that is rewarding that habit. So if you're, for instance, and I think we've talked about it before slightly, is let's say, you know, that in your feedback process, you know, your memory is going to tell you that when I feel a grumble in my stomach, or I feel hungry, or I watched a certain thing that makes me feel a certain way, I know there's ice cream in the freezer. So automatically I know that I go to the freezer to find food. Within the freezer, there's the tub of ice cream. When I have that ice cream, I feel good. I reward myself. I've now felt better about the situation. Dopamine's created. I am now rewarded for the motivation to go do that thing. And now I've created a habit, and I'm going to continually reinforce that. And eventually it just becomes a system. So we need to interrupt and I guess reduce that circuitry so that it's not continually being fed. So that does come to a degree with creating new habits, obviously, but things like avoiding purchasing certain foods from the shop and having them in the freezer. So when you get to the freezer, it's that you look in there and all of a sudden there isn't any ice cream. I now have to create a new situation to go find ice cream. I don't actually want to do it. I just want ice cream, or I just want to feel good. Okay, so what else can I do? Well, I can then also pair when I have this feeling, but I get up and go for a walk. Now I'm associating that feeling with the desire to do something positive. I'm still going to get dopamine. I'm still going to get endorphin because I feel good, but I'm not necessarily going to get it with, say, eating food. So generally with a lot of like populations that aren't us specific, like, you know, bodybuilding, powerlifting, things like that, the habits they created have been reinforced to such a degree and for such a long time that it's not that they're lazy or I guess obese based on choice as much as it is their choice to stop the habit, and the habits just keep simply ticking over. Think about how you feel when you watch a movie, or think about, you know, we've been ingrained to consider that when you go to the movies, you have popcorn and drinks. That's a habit. That's a habit, a habitual trigger. We know that when we're going to the movies, we're going to have a frozen Coke and popcorn. So those things, environments, all the situations you exist in, the things that you purchase in your house, all this stuff creates habits that you reinforce by continually performing the action. So trying to interrupt that feedback loop and disrupt that circuitry helps the brain rewire that habit. And then you move into the process of establishing new ones by, again, utilizing the dopamine of motivation, reinforcing that behavior by trying to force yourself to continually do it. That then shifts from one bad habit to now erecting a new one.
So basically, in deficit, when hungry, masturbate and you'll be fine.
Yeah, basically, yeah. No, I tried that.
You're going to do it so many times before you're done. And it's just like, well, now I got nothing. See, works.
Yeah, but no. In terms of then staying adherent to especially during preps, and one of the things to recognize too in hunger signaling and craving is removing immediate presence of something that you're able to view. Generally, the cue subsides. So we know that generally, if you say you're actually aware and noticing the hunger as opposed to just simply reacting to hunger. If you're able to stand with the situation and kind of, I guess, process it as opposed to acting on it, generally hunger cues will subside because the brain's literally telling you in that instant, like, oh, I feel hungry. What can I send you to make you go get food? If you think of the body as literally just a vessel for the brain to enact things it's trying to achieve, it's going to, I need food to survive. Hey, go get me food. If you recognize that, pay attention to, I guess we call that more like a higher executive functioning and critical thinking, is that you're then going to be able to interrupt that and rather than act on it, let it pass. Generally hunger cravings subside. And obviously we can't remove them entirely, but in the same process, if you don't have those foods in your environment or things that you know will trigger you to want to eat, so you literally have your meals pre-prepared, you have things in your place that are ready to go, like Pepsi Maxes or Diet Rights, whatever's going to keep you adherent is then going to reduce the feeding of that habit circuitry and keep you more adherent and on track to the new habits you're trying to create, the new behaviors. Obviously, for a lot of bodybuilders like us, where it's just generally our behavior, it's easier to do. But if you're new as someone coming into it, that's a way to go about it.
Yep, fair. Anything to add, Chrissy boy?
No, Ben covered that beautifully.
Yeah, I figured we'll just let him talk about that and we'll just sit there and look pretty.
I think the other thing to consider too is like for a lot of people, like let's say Chris's, me, stuff like that, where we do this all the time. It's a very simple thing to do, I guess, in terms of like establishing good, healthy, meal times, behaviors, having foods in the house, stuff like that. So don't necessarily just base it on do pay attention to what we do, but at the same time, recognize that for someone new to the industry or new to the sport or new to the hobby, that if you just go balls to the walls of trying to copy, say, someone who's a completely highly conscientious, task-orientated, routine person, you're probably going to set yourself up to suck for a little while because it's not that easy. Like for us, it's a bit of a piece of piss. For most people, it's not.
That's fair. moving along. Advice on coaching relationship breakdown. How to politely end contracts if you're not happy.
See ya.
Anyone want to tackle that one first?
I haven't had to do it, nor have I had anyone do it. I hope that's none of my clients that are messaging it.
It's like that awkward moment. It's like, who is this person? Let's find out. Yeah. It's not my client, so we're good. It's like, this is how your client is telling you that they want to end it with you. No. So, I mean, this is an interesting one. I do have this conversation a lot with potential clients that come on board and have already got a coach. And it's like, in the consulting process, it's like, well, hold on. Why are you wanting to leave your coach? Like, is there something that could be simply communicated better, that it's going to help both the coaching service and obviously your ability to achieve the result? Are you just simply not happy, or are you being a little bit precious? So it always goes both ways. It falls on both people, not just the coaching service is bad. Like, have you done, I guess, what's asked of you from your coach to help you achieve, whatever your goal is? And, can you honestly say that you've done that? Because if you haven't done that, and you haven't told your coach that maybe you don't agree with it, or you're unable to do it, and, all that sort of stuff, well, then, you can't really blame the coach, because you need to, as a client, you need to communicate. And all, three of us have coaches, and it's the exact same, principle. And we're across the same thing. So on the other hand, you are a paying client. So with anything that you're paying for, if you're not happy with the service, you've expressed why you're not happy with the service and nothing has changed, then you're fully entitled to just simply say, to be polite, obviously, don't be rude, and just say, hey, look, we've spoken about it, hasn't sort of changed, nothing's really changed. I'm moving on effectively. So, and that's that. And the coach can't be mad, especially if there's been communication beforehand. If it's a sort of left of field type thing where it's like very surprising, you're achieving results, you're doing really well, and all of a sudden I'm changing coaches. It's like, well, why? If it's not broken, why fix it?
If it's not broke, why fix it? And there's some other coach promising you something better than you're already getting, but you're already getting results and you're getting a great relationship. Like, chances are that coach is probably full of shit anyway, and he's just trying to lose his more money.
And I guess from a coaching perspective, coaches poaching clients, approaching other coaches' clients, knowing that they have coaches, that's a big no-no. Don't do that. Don't be a dick.
I can literally address that right now. Is that I was talking to a follower, and she listens, so she's probably going to know who I'm talking about. But she told me of a previous interaction and said she's going to coach herself for a little while. And I was like, when I heard what was going on, I was like, holy shit! Like, when you're done with the self process, if you haven't got someone, reach out. I would love to chat. I didn't talk to her for the sake of trying to get a client. It was more so that I heard what had happened. I was like, that's fucking disgusting. Like, if that's how your coach is working. Turns out she said she's going to SCAF. And I was like, beautiful. I could not praise him anymore. I was like, if it's not me, then the fact that it's going to be someone that I respect, then like.
That was a funny conversation, because then she messaged me. She's like, oh, Ben just offered coaching service. I'm like, oh, he's a really good coach. You should go there. He's like, he said the same thing about you. You guys are paying each other. I'm like, yeah, with nudes.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Just how we roll.
Jerks. Oh, no, but like that process was that, where rather than trying to poach or trying to steal clients, I simply was disgusted with what she'd received previously. I was like, if it's not me, then I would guide you to someone that I trust and know, and you've already chosen SCAF. So I wasn't like, oh no, don't go to him, come here. And also like, this is what you're going to get. Like, you're going to get great service out of it. And I guarantee he's going to do a lot more than what I just heard you were getting. So that to me is also a respect thing and like a ethical business practice.
Yeah.
Because who looks worse? The coach who's trying to steal other people's clients by promising a bunch of false hopes, or the person who's like, cool, if it's not me, I respect your decision. These are the guys I would recommend, or who you're going to. Great choice.
It's like there was that phase of, coaches, Instagram coaches that had, tons of followers, and they had bots send clients or potential clients, an auto-generated message saying, oh, like if you're looking for a coach and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
Blah. And it was a big thing. Everyone was blowing up about it over Instagram. That was funny. But yeah, I mean, don't poach other coaches' clients. If a client comes to you because they're unhappy with their coach, ask them why they're unhappy. Because also, if it's on the client, you're going to end up just inheriting that problem anyway. Save yourself the headache. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I was causing problems for my coach and then I went to another coach, like, I'd feel sorry for that coach. You know what I mean? You don't want to be causing problems.
Also understand too is no coach is perfect, and there's going to be areas in that coaching practice that can probably either get better or improve or are working on themselves. So just because someone's come in and thrown a Hail Mary that they've promised you, like, oh, you lost 10 kilos already with the coach in 20 weeks, we could do 20 kilos in 20 weeks. Like, there's probably reasons why the coach is doing it, and also they're learning themselves, and growing together is a great way of building a great client relationship and partnership that they also, as that coach knows more, can look back at the information he or she already has of you that can go, well, there's all this information here now. I know more about what that means. We can have better data now to understand where to go in the future, where to track down the track, things that we can work on. Whereas if you just simply coach jumping and that coach has no data on you and there's no information, like, just because you've swapped doesn't mean you're going to get a better result.
Yeah. To that testament, I've still got my very first ever online client as a client still. It's been 7 years. He's been my client, never had another coach. I mean, I don't know.
You for 6 years.
Yeah, I know. I feel sorry for him. He's paid me way too much money for no results. But anyway,
it's really just the chat.
Pretty much. It's probably because his price has never. No, I was gonna say his price has never changed. It has, but yeah, he's paying me $10 a week now. But yeah, I mean, that's how I'd address that, to be honest, from both a client and coaching perspective. Unless you guys have anything to add, Chrissy?
Yeah. No, I'm pretty much the same there. Starting to hit a wall, you know?
Chris capped himself out at the talking about training.
I've used all my brain cells for it.
All right, I think, well, this would be an interesting question. I think this is a bit more fun, but I mean, could be educational, maybe. If you could redesign one feature or element of the human body, what would it be and why?
Ooh.
Myostatin inhibition. Just get everyone
just remove it. What is it?
I think it'd be funny to see people with no thumbs.
I was thinking something along the lines of toes. Like,
watch them try to click shit.
Yeah, like if you just remove like the big toe, just watching everyone fall over.
Yeah, I think that'd be funny.
Yeah, I agree.
We're actually just born with a sound hole in the head as opposed to 2 ears. Brilliant.
Yeah. That, or like, just imagine removing the belly button altogether. Like, I feel like people would just look weird.
Yeah, that'd be an odd one.
Yeah,
like no nipples. Like we don't need nipples, so why do we have them?
Yeah,
just remove the glands there so I don't get gyno. Like, just why can't you help me out?
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, or like having literally like Cyclops, just one eye in the middle of your head. That'd just be weird. Posing practice during set rest times or at the end of training, or both?
You say during training?
Yeah, so posing practice during set rest times. So in between sets.
Oh, no, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Like, if you're posing in your like rest sets, that to me is more of a douchey thing to do. Like, there's a time for posing, there's a time for training.
I'm going to take photos when you do it in between your rests, but yes. Just check casually looking himself in the mirror doing a side chest.
I have a feeling I can guess who this question may be from, if it's someone close related to my direction. But some of the things I've seen at a previous training facility, guys stopping sets to pose. Not finishing their set off, then posing, stopping set.
Oh, no. That's not the question though. This is.
Oh, no, I know, but I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen. It's like, and then that's rewarded because it goes onto content that then goes onto Instagram, and everyone's like, "That's sick. You look great." And literally, I watched a guy stop set mid-set to pose, then finish off his set. And it wasn't a drop set. It wasn't like a cluster set. It wasn't an intensity modifier. It was just simply, I watched him do a very poor set. Midway through that set, stopped, started posing his tricep, re-engaged the set, then posed again. It's horrible.
Clearly wasn't heavy enough.
No, that sums up the training, like that training environment, as we're talking about with like one gym. Yeah. But that sums up that training environment, and just the fact that, if you're of the ability where you're able to pose that hard between sets, then that's also taking way too long between sets.
Yep, I agree. So basically, we're all saying at the end of training. Any specific evidence that people who were previously obese will gain body fat easier, faster than others? Which is interesting, because I've had this question from someone else, actually.
When I think of this, I think more so of the, I suppose, hormonal wiring for them. Like, it's probably a little bit different in a sense that they don't have the same, okay, stop eating now, you're full kind of mechanism. So to me, it's I think, potentially from a hunger perspective, physiologically, maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say from a a hormone standpoint, potentially, depending on, I guess, the time that's also elapsed between. Because we do have this, regulation and dysregulation of hunger signaling and stuff like that can occur, but it's just literally the length of time.
The other thing is identifying whether they've actually sorted out the behaviors of them to.
Well, yeah, and then that's
if you haven't addressed that, and that's why we know with the slingshot effect is that you can lose 20 kilos, but the chances are if you haven't addressed those behaviors or learned more knowledge around nutrition, which is where flexible dieting comes in so handy, you're also probably going to slingshot back to 25 or 30 kilo gain. Yeah. So those obese clients, though they go through some cool changes, if they aren't coached properly or guided through those situations, which is why I guess systems like Dalton's are a great thing for Gen Pop, is that they teach you how to not need a coach. They end up actually slingshotting further back to them from where they started. They end up further in a worse position because they haven't actually addressed the behaviors that led them to being obese, or addressed the traumas, or addressed the environments, or addressed the places they hang out in, or the friends that they're around, if they're around feeders or enablers and things like that. So those are all like concepts that have to be considered too.
Yeah, and there's no real studies, I think, to show it, only because like the period of time that the study would need to be done over doesn't exist. So all the rebound studies and all that sort of stuff were done sort of, I think, within 12 months post, diet and all that sort of stuff. Like if we're looking at, 5 years plus, I haven't looked, but I just can't see there being a study on it, to be honest. And from a physiological standpoint too, it's like, you're not going to be adding fat any faster or at a different rate than somebody that's a similar, I guess, body weight and all that sort of stuff, and just hadn't been, or like even compared to yourself, if you hadn't previously been overweight. It's just more so, I guess, that psychological effect. And it's like, have you been eating food again and all that sort of stuff, like the way you were, that got you overweight in the first place? That's probably the biggest factor there. Moving on. First cycle advice.
All of it.
Don't.
I was going to say get a tricycle, but same. First cycle advice. Start low, start with one. Get bloods, make sure it's monitored, make sure you're healthy first to start, because if you're not healthy and first to start, you're not going to have a good time. That's all I can really say about that.
Make sure this is a cool statement I've heard a couple of times now from different people that are actually people, and we probably all agree, is earn the right to use it.
Well, yeah.
Earn the right to be in a position where that's the next thing you have to do. If you're looking to go to an enhanced federation or an enhanced performance, make sure you're earning the right with the fact that
make sure your goal aligns with what it is.
Well, yeah, that too.
Why it is that you're taking it. Because I guess on the flip side to that, if you're 45 years old and you just want a better quality of life, well, then that's fair enough. You can use HRT, TRT approach.
I would almost encourage that from a psychological perspective as a necessity. It blows like how hard doctors reject HRT and the lengths you have to go to, when we know there's a correlation between hitting that, I guess, our version of menopause where testosterone does almost stop, and we end up in that sort of antidepressant, that depression midlife crisis period.
It's okay. You can take testosterone and you'll be fine.
But it's testosterone and creatine, you'll be right.
Exactly. Testosterone, some over-the-counter maxes, the gear,
horny goat weed, and we'll be right. But yes, also just to preface this entire thing, we're not doctors. This is all entertainment and educational purposes only.
Infotainment.
Don't listen to us. Tips for good sleep.
Sleep hygiene, Bale.
Yeah,
sleep hygiene.
Like this same time every night.
Yeah, something that we're all onto.
Yeah.
Limiting your screen time going into sleep.
Yeah, having a window of time to start actually winding down, so that your actual melatonin, your melatonin can start being actually produced and that sort of stuff. So once it recognizes it from once the light goes down, obviously being chrono-based, but at the same time, we also need to create the environment for it to be produced. So creating that environment means you need to basically move to a parasympathetic state. So you need to actually relax. So to do that, it's like, personally for me, my routine is like, once I've eaten dinner, I'm sitting down watching TV for a couple of hours or an hour, whatever it is. That's sort of my time to start winding down. So it's like post dinner, I'm like, cool, time to chill. And my body's like, yeah, it's ready to start putting itself in that phase to produce melatonin. So that into having a shower. Once I have my shower, it's kind of like, cool, into bed, 20 minutes and I'm asleep. So it's like I've set that up though over a period of an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah.
And this is where the importance of creating positive habits is so important. Is it like this is a process that all of that will be reinforced and reenacted by the fact that each one leads to a better feeling, a better outcome, and then that total outcome is I wake up better feeling fresh and I've recovered and I've done everything well. So individually stacking those things together and finding out how you best start to wind down. So it might be that you're turning the TV off half an hour before you go to bed or something like that. You're making sure that your morning set up for the next day. You throw your brushing teeth in there. Maybe you take some, I don't know, whatever it is you take, maybe take some sleep stuff, maybe whatever it is, have a herbal tea. All those things then stack together and create a great habit. And then come bedtime, your body isn't like, your brain especially isn't thinking of, oh, but I've also got 20 other things to do. You've done that process now where you're associating sleep with that routine. You've got to have it.
Yep. I don't think there's anything really to add to that, is there?
Yeah, beautiful.
It's all about that sleep hygiene routine.
Let's actually do that. If you are someone who's struggling with it, just simply look for the SHI13. Do that, fill it out, see where you suck.
Yeah, and probably don't invest in blue eye blockers.
Oh man,
blue light blockers. So I mean, they were a thing. They almost had some promise, and then it was like, they don't do as much if you have a good sleep routine. So
it's true.
Yeah, and you just look really funny with orange lenses.
It's funny.
Invest in them. Send photos. Post photos, tag Bros with Brains.
It's funny the lengths people will go to just not do the basic things that we know work.
Yeah.
That always blows my mind.
Yeah, once you've ticked off all the basics, then we can look at, potential supplementation and all that sort of stuff. Okay, let's move on to shame of life, shall we?
Let's do it.
We're nearly there. We're nearly done with this game. Not too many to go. I mean, too many good ones anyway. So, the most ridiculous thing you have done to try and impress a crush?
Oh, man, I haven't really done much, to be honest.
I said hi.
Yeah. What's up?
Yeah, I did a windmill.
it was
I got a surprise for you.
The most ridiculous thing is I just said, "What's up?"
And it probably wasn't "What's up" from like the fact that Scappy's like 45. "What's up" was like a thing back then.
For me, it's
for me the tongue out as well. What's that?
No, for me, it's always howdy. Hang out.
Hey.
With the extra Y's at the end.
Yeah, all the E's and Y's as well.
I don't know if I've done anything ridiculous to try and impress a crush.
It was probably like high school me that did something dumb.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, but I just don't know if I've done anything that outrageous,
Yeah, I mean, to impress a crush. I mean, I can't think of anything.
Like, I don't think it was anything. The only thing we've probably done was nothing more out of the ordinary than a standard like teenage male would have done.
Yeah, just like, hey, what's
up? Yeah. So I'm trying to think. It's like,
what's your Snapchat?
Yeah, like that's what I'm trying to think. Like, and I guess when we look at ridiculous, it's like what would be, I guess, classified as ridiculous, right? So it's like. I can't think of anything outside the norm, or that's that far outside the norm, I guess.
Dude, just simp way too hard and like go over the top and just look stupid. Nah.
Yeah, it's not like I've done, like a backflip in front of a crush and being like, "Hey, did you see that?" or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's like in my head, that's what seems ridiculous, right? That's what I'm trying to think. It's just like, yeah, I got nothing. I can't think of anything. You guys, nothing?
Nah, really? Dude, that one's nothing for me on that one.
Nah, cool. What's the worst thing you could wear to a job interview? Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Yeah, legitimately nothing.
Sexy Flanders.
Well, actually, you know what would be worse? You know what would be worse? Like,
depends
you're
on the
actually
job.
wearing nothing, but then you've got a big trench coat over the top.
Yeah.
But it really depends on the job.
It's like Step Brothers.
Yeah.
Wearing the suits of the fucking like now all of a sudden those suits seem kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Is that ketchup? It's ketchup and onions.
It's like wearing a clown suit. But again, what's the job application? Working at Macca's. Well, it makes sense. What do we got here? No, we don't want that question. That's stupid. Again, this is getting to like the shit questions now at the end of this game. Righto. You're a devil with a needle and thread. What is the weirdest thing to embroider on your mother's bath robe?
What the hell is this question? Let's just go next. Fuck.
I was just going to say.
I can't even figure that.
If that was Tinder, I'm swiping that for sure.
I would have just said penis, but sure. Same. The worst name for a newborn baby.
Fred.
Bob.
Yeah, something like really basic, like Bob, Fred.
Like Ben.
I don't know, something that you just wouldn't hear a lot of these days. No, I feel like
Chris.
Ben's common. Ben's like very modern. Chris is also modern.
Those names are like back in the day, which is like those
like Bob.
names that
Karen.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, here's a better question. What is the male name of Karen?
Ben.
You asked for that one. You did ask for that one.
Yeah.
Now, what like the male name for Karen? Like when you associate Karen with like the short haircut and all that sort of shit.
I picture a Matt or
it'd be a John.
John. For sure.
John. Yeah, John. It's like John. Yeah, John's the manager. John's the higher up.
No one calls their son John these days.
Nah, you're not wrong. John or Gary.
Yeah, John or Gaz.
Gary. Definitely Gary.
John or Gary.
Shout out to Gaz.
Yeah, he doesn't listen. He doesn't listen to this podcast, so we're good. Bad advice for a kid's first day at school.
Don't pick your nose.
Get your dick
No,
out.
pick your nose.
I was going to say, don't pick your nose. That's good advice.
Don't chew the. Oh, I was going to say, chew the gum under the table.
Elf when he does that makes me crook every fucking time. I watch it every Christmas and I just see
Scrape it off.
gum and you're fucking crook.
What do you got? Invent a public figure scandal that will rock the world next year.
I mean, fuck.
Somebody shoot Scott Morrison.
Oh, shit. I was going to say something to do with the Queen.
No, so that'd rock the world, wouldn't it?
Not Scott Morrison, maybe not. The world wouldn't care that much.
That's
like
right.
Australia would care.
Yeah,
the US would be like, nah.
The French would be like, it was us. Oh, fair enough. Something with the Queen. That'll work. What's the most annoying sound in the world?
Oh, chalkboard, fucking fingers.
Yeah.
Chalkboard.
Yeah, nails down a chalkboard.
Fucking hate that, bro. Even just thinking about it now just makes me feel gross.
Or hearing a girlfriend complain.
That might piss some people off. Probably.
Not bad.
Tell which one of us is single on the podcast.
It's not even that. It's more so it's like when they actually when you like you say that and then the girl's like, yeah, no, we agree. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, really? Like,
damn.
Give us something
to be mad about.
Fucking hell, man.
What can I say to stir you?
Okay, well, let's make this the last one because this one's kind of funny. The worst imaginable cum face.
Mine.
Oh.
Well, I was going to say Ben's mustache, so that works.
Yeah. Ben just with a greasy stash just looking up at you.
Yeah, I pre-oil it, so it looks even worse.
That's slick hair back and everything. I reckon we'll leave it there. We've been going for close to like an hour and 20, so
beautiful. My hotspot didn't drop out, so we're good.
True. Now it drops
Step it up. Step it up in the world.
It's probably better than my usual connection, to be honest.
I was going to say there was you didn't have any cats out or anything. You were able to get up and do whatever you had to do and come back.
Fucking
no problems.
bullshit.
It was smooth. We'll just keep using
when
this.
your phone's hotspot trumps your actual connection, there's a problem.
100%.
Yeah, I know. That's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I'd just be like, Telstra, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's probably 3G.
Give me the same speed and connection you have on my 5G with my fucking Wi-Fi, please. Like, come on, it couldn't be that hard.
I won't lie, unless you've kept the anger away from our chat, you've definitely handled the emotion well being as far into prep. You haven't put holes in walls, considering the last 2 weeks have been.
No, I'm good. Good.
He's good for now.
Yeah.
I mean, Scaffy cops it in person.
I figured that to be the case.
When he walks in, oh, what's up now, dude? What happened? You can see it on his face. What happened?
It's like a big.
What's fucking next?
Yeah, it's that sitting down on the couch, and it's like, with Chris when he comes in, if he sits, because I'm always there before him. So if he sits down on the couch and pulls out his book ready to go, he's in a good mood, ready to train, we're ready to go. If he sits down and just looks at you with no book in hand, hasn't even put his bag away, something's wrong. Something's happened. Needs to de-stress. He needs 5 or 10 just to zone
relax,
in.
Yeah,
just
get my head in the game.
Just to let everything go. Yeah. It's the funniest thing. But anyway, that's how you know when you've been training with someone for too long.
And we love it. We love it.
We love it. Wouldn't change it.
Exactly. Joys of finding a good training partner.
So things that have been happening. We assume Chris has not done any work on his course.
I've actually done a lot. I've done a lot on it. I'm coming up to the editing type of stage. I'm still writing some of the later ones, but there's a lot of editing going on between me and young Luca, our videographer, to get some really nice infographics and whatnot to jazz it up a little bit. But it's coming. It's actually making really good progress.
So do we have any?
How are you presenting, Chrissy? Are you doing like text, like written format, or is it like, I guess,
video format?
Points?
Yeah, so it'll be Loom, like Loom recordings, like going through like a lecture type of series in terms of like just going through different modules.
Yeah, and you're just kind of reading over what you're trying to say?
Yeah. And then I've got like dot points there, and then I'll kind of elaborate and go on from there.
Yeah, cool. Very similar thing to what I was going to do. Yeah, cool.
I was going to say, what you got? Anything coming out, Benny, that we need to know about? Anything you want to tell the listeners?
No, some spots are still open, and pretty much just getting ready to. We're going to get to recording stages for weeks 1 and 2 of the course. Start that out. Had a few good chats with people like Benny Scott and that who do similar things. So, kind of in that process where if I just don't start doing it,
it'll never get done. Yep.
I'm just going to keep perfecting it and be like, I should have talked about this, should have talked about this. I know the information's there. I know what I'm saying. I know what it's about and what I'm trying to get across. So it's more like, if it's shit when it goes out, we edit as opposed to just perfect it until it gets out.
Exactly right. And this is one of the big things for new online coaches that want to scale their business and get a little bit bigger, and they want to, add facets. It's like you're always going to be your own worst enemy, and it's the hardest thing to sort of get out of the way of. It's like getting out of the way.
The funny part is the things that I'm stressing about are stuff that only I know. Like, I know that 90% of what I would already teach someone, they don't know about anyway. So like, they wouldn't pick it up on me and be like, "Oh, you didn't talk about this."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, fuck, I didn't talk about that."
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
That's my limiting factor, which is annoying.
No, that's totally fair. Putting a seminar series together. I'm going to potentially move. I'm going to travel up the East Coast to do some seminars. I might have some guests on the way. We shall see. Guests being you guys, obviously. Like, I don't know anyone else that's going to.
It'll be either me or Ben.
Guests on the way, no one else that I know, so just be you two guys.
We're literally the last stop.
So, it would be interesting for Sydney, see who wants to come and what we want to do, but maybe a one-day seminar, some nutrition and training stuff, and a prac, which would be fun. As we were talking and doing potentially, actually, we won't say what the Q&A was going to be, just because I feel like if we say it and people hear it, they'll want to do it and they'll copy us and it'll be our thing and it'll be like, fuck you. And what else? We've got a short course. So I'm going to be writing a short course. So like a maybe 8-week course on some biomechanic fundamentals, and put that out there on Kajabi, see how we go. If I can be bothered writing it. I'm not going to do a Chris and hold myself to some sort of timeline, which I should, but I won't.
Damn goal setting.
Yeah, bad. And onboarding clients. So I do have a couple more spots. Did put up a post. Yesterday when we're recording. So when this comes out, it would have been like 4 days ago. For powerlifting spots, because apparently people forgot that I coach powerlifting. So yes, I am coaching. I do. I still coach powerlifting. It's just I don't advertise coaching powerlifting, but I do. Actually have a lifter going to pro roll, which should be interesting.
Very nice.
And that's about it from me. Beautiful. As always, please like or subscribe.
Like, subscribe, comment, leave a comment.
If you're on Spotify, you can actually
tell us how offended you are.
You can leave reviews on Spotify. That'd be pretty cool. I didn't actually realize you could do that. You can rate 5 stars on Spotify. So if you
just so you know, we're not going to take our content down off Spotify.
Yeah. If Joe Rogan says anything, it doesn't change what we do. So if you could give us, what I guess you rate us, and it better be a 5, otherwise I'll hunt you down and stab you.
We'll know.
Yeah, we'll know who you are. And also, obviously, on YouTube, please subscribe, comment, like, whatever it is that you want to do. We will probably add clips to YouTube and start doing shorts and stuff at some point. So it should be fun. Beautiful. That's it from us. As always, thank you for tuning in, and we will speak to you next week.